Oh, that was a quick introduction. Hey, welcome everybody to another week on air, our flagship show here at AWS, where we talk about the latest announcements here at AWS, brought to you by the people who develop them. I am Todd Fortier, one of your hosts. I'm a senior solutions architect here at AWS, where I focus on developing solutions for what we call the AWS Solutions Library. If you've never seen the AWS Solutions Library, I encourage you to head over to aws.amazon.com/solutions. Check it out. That would be really cool. And I'm joined today by Art Baudo. Art, our first time hosting together. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, but I don't even know what AWS is. Should we start there, Todd?
Sure. Let's start with what is AWS here? And I've got it queued up because I've had to answer this question on the spot before and I get tongue-tied. So AWS, owned by Amazon, one of the leading cloud providers. We provide on-demand cloud computing services and APIs that you can stitch together to solve for complex your business use cases. Art, when did you start using AWS? That's a good question. When did you first become an AWS guy?
I have been at AWS for 4 years now, Todd, almost like 2 weeks into my fourth year here. So, for at least 4 years before that, I worked someplace that would have done some on premise work before that, but I saw the future. So I joined us over here. And way of intro, I am Art Baudo. I'm a principal product marketing manager here at AWS. I support the EC2 function. And just want to say shout out to everybody out there. Drop us a little line where you're joining us from today. We're pretty excited to have everybody here. And we have some really cool demos today. And that's what we do here on our weekly show is Todd and I will function as hosts. We'll have some pretty senior guests from AWS. They're going to come out here and talk to us about some of the latest features that have been launched in the last couple of weeks here at Amazon. And as a way for you to get started, we're actually going to demo them so you can potentially duplicate some of the work that we do here and learn how to get started at Amazon or using Amazon Web Services.
That's right. And we have other shows. I understand that you host another show. What show do you host outside of the weekly the show?
I do. I host a show that we air on Tuesdays called Under the Hood with AWS. And we take a topic, one specific topic, and we dive into it for an hour. So if you like today's show and you like a singular topic, you can join us out on Tuesdays for that. We also have a startup show. Jillian Ford is a co-host of that, and she does that on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Mine is 2 p.m. Pacific time. And I think you also have a show as well, Todd.
I don't have a show, not yet. I'm working on it, but I
Oh.
do tune into a few of the shows. And one of my favorites is our sports show with our producer, Nick, who hosts, I think it's every other week. He hosts a show diving into how AWS is used in the sports domain. And then we also have Data Dive. That's one that I've started to pay attention to more as we move towards generative AI and how to think about data and get data into the cloud and use it effectively. So that's a great show. Security, we have a security show called Lockdown with Kyle. I've hosted with Kyle before. That's a really fun show. And then one more I'll mention, and then we can stop plugging shows. Game Day with AM. So we kind of gamify. I've heard it described as a virtual locked-in room or lockout room where you try to figure out how to use AWS services to solve different problems. So that's another fun program. So this is just one of a suite of programs, but we're glad you're joining today. We want to know where you're coming from. Have you used AWS? Are you new to AWS? What do you want to get out of the show? Ask us live. We're live. So
Yeah,
welcome everybody.
absolutely. And we mentioned some of the other hosts, and just a note, this week, folks like myself and we saw AM and Jasmine we did an entire show this week talking about AWS AI infrastructure. So you can go back in our Twitch feed and view our past content as well, taking a look at that. And I highly encourage you to take a look at some of that past content and review some of it. And all of this stuff we try to use as a vehicle to give all of you information about AWS. And you can ask folks like Todd and I and our experts who come on air with us questions real time about what's happening.
Okay, so speaking of AI, speaking of experts, I think it's time to bring on our first guest. Should we do that?
I think we should. Let's get started here.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome. Oh,
Hey,
thank you
guys.
both for joining us. So let's start with some intros here. Sorry, Todd, to have cut you off like three times. I'm just determined to speak
I'm
over
good.
you.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Maybe both. It looks like we have two people here from Amazon Bedrock. But before I get so presumptuous, maybe we'll start with some intros here. Raj,
Yeah,
why
for
don't
sure.
you intro yourself?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. My name is Raj Patek. I'm a principal solutions architect here at AWS, focused on our financial services and machine learning vertical, but work really closely with our Bedrock team in launching some of these cool features.
Okay. And
Hey
next up,
everyone. Yeah. Yes, so I'm a principal product manager with Amazon Bedrock. I lead Bedrock Guardrails initiatives and responsible AI on Amazon Bedrock. Thanks a lot for having me here. Super excited to share what we have today.
all
Cool. So
right.
today we're talking about Bedrock. I know that's a service that people are hearing more and more of, and specifically within Bedrock, we have a feature that we're launching within Bedrock that we want to dive into. But before we get into that, for those of our audience who might not be familiar with Bedrock, I don't know how that's possible today, but if you are, what is Bedrock? And let's just give a quick introduction of what Bedrock is, and then we can get into the more details.
Yeah, I think Amazon Bedrock is basically a fully managed service that allows you to build and scale your generative AI applications using a lot of high performing foundation models that are available on the platform. And these foundation models are from various model providers, including Anthropic, Cohere, Meta Llama models that you might have heard in the past, as well as Amazon's own Titan models. There are Stability as well as Mistral models available there. So not only does Bedrock provides you the choice of these foundation model, it also equips you with a set of tools like agents, like knowledge bases, so that you can build and create more sophisticated generative AI applications on top of the platform. So with that in mind, I think as we are talking about building any Gen AI application, we also need to look at the security and the safety. And that's exactly where Guardrails comes in. And Guardrails is like a developer tool that you get on Bedrock that allows you to implement safeguards and controls on your Gen AI application across a host of problems that you typically see with the Gen AI technology. And this includes either blocking undesirable topics in the context of your application, like you would want to block a financial advice, for example, or for users' privacy and security, you might want to remove all of the personally identifiable information in your GenAI application. Similarly, you might want to remove toxic comment, toxicity, or prompt injection and jailbreaking attacks, which is more common phenomena in LLMs today. And finally, you can also detect and block hallucinations with a capability that we launched recently called contextual grounding check. So what it does here is it provides you like an all-round protection across a safety, privacy, and truthfulness as you're building and scaling your GenAI application.
So first, I love the focus on security. I have a personal passion about security as well, Todd. And I have also been on Kyle's show a couple of times where we've talked about security. And earlier this year, I was working on some stuff with our Nitro folks. We published a blog on secure AI as well. So to Abhinav's point, security is job zero here. But one thing I did want to bring up that Abhinav mentioned is the word hallucinations. And I think that most people think of hallucinations a little bit differently than you're actually talking about them. So I think a lot of people in the AI space know what you're talking about, but maybe introduce people to what is a hallucination in the context of AI rather than hallucination.
It's not the thing that starts happening when I get too jacked on Celsius right before we go live on Twitch and I start hallucinating. It's something else entirely. Sorry, Anubhav, go ahead.
Yeah. So hallucination basically is a phenomena in the generative AI space where as the foundation models or the LLMs are predicting the next best words, at times they can go wrong. The prediction can be wrong. And what it comes across to the user as you are asking questions to a generative AI model is that it can confidently provide you information that is factually incorrect and that's factually not really accurate. It can just cook up information. That sort of information that gets generated is called hallucination. There has been like some media reports on that. So any information that's not factually correct, but the foundation model got it wrong is called hallucination. And where we on the guardrail side actually try to solve this problem is that if you're providing a certain source of information as you're building your GenAI application, let's say it could be your own document or enterprise data, if you're providing that source of information, Guardrail will actually check if the response that was generated by these foundation models are factually correct based on the enterprise data or not. And it will also check if the foundation model actually added net new information that may not be part of your data at all. So it basically checks these parameters and tries to curtail hallucination problems.
Yeah, and to add on to kind of what Anubhav is saying, a lot of the times, a lot of people tend to use large language models or generative AI I'd like to say the wrong way, right? These aren't really search engines. And I think for a lot of the times we look at them as search engines, right? We ask them for their data. But really you should be using them for their skills, right? Like what they're capable of doing, how they're able to interpret information. So what Anubhav was mentioning around contextual guarding really helps against that, right? In the event that, hey, you're building an app, but you just didn't prompt it properly, or you're building an app and you're just kind of asking it to answer questions without giving it any source of information to base its answer on, right? That's where preventing hallucinations or harmful activity is really important.
Yeah. And it's key because people are looking for the correct answer. And if you provide an incorrect answer or a hallucination, people kind of can lose trust with the entire model when it may not be quite that. So, it may not be a real problem with the answer. It just could be the information.
That's exactly it. There's a really funny post on Twitter about how certain AIs were like referencing Reddit on how much they were asking for pizza sauce recipes, and they were talking about adding glue to make it more consistent. So it's really funny about like how sources of information can be interpreted the wrong way.
So that's one aspect of hallucinations, right? Just making sure that it's staying factually correct. But there's another aspect of guardrails, making sure it stays on topic and in context for whatever it is you developed it to do. And I've heard it applied if I am exposing a chatbot internally to my workforce or to my staff, and I want to make sure they don't start going off the rails asking about pizza sauce and say, hey, focus on work, only ask questions about this. We can use guardrails to kind of keep that context narrow.
That's absolutely correct, right? And that's where I think the customization capabilities of guardrail are really powerful, because you can basically ensure that you are designing your generative AI application to stay within certain bounds and avoid certain controversial topics. And earlier, what we did when we launched Guardrail back in April, it was like an exclusive property or exclusive capability within Bedrock, where it worked only with foundation models on Bedrock. What we did right now, like a couple of weeks back, we launched an independent API on Guardrails, which allows you to now evaluate content that goes into and comes out of any foundation model out there, be it any custom hosted model, if either you're hosting it on-prem or on SageMaker. So you can evaluate any content for any GenAI application, even if the models are not really part of Amazon Bedrock. So the flexibility for Guardrail to actually apply like a centralized governance for all your GenAI application, irrespective of the underlying infrastructure or foundation model, makes it truly powerful, where you can like just deploy consistent safeguards across any and every foundation model out there.
Okay, so that's what you're going to demo today.
Yeah.
And before we could probably talk about GenAI guardrails and all the stuff like for a long time, and trust me, I would like to. But I want to see what you guys brought to show us and get us in it. So let's bring your screen on and show us the new guardrails API.
Yeah, for sure. So as we get started, what I want to do before we get into the guardrails API is actually walk through building a guardrail, because this is probably the most important part before you actually even use the API. So what you're seeing here is me just walking through real quick the building aspect of the guardrail itself. Anubhav mentioned this before, but guardrails have a lot of different components. The example we're using is pretty boring. We're using fiduciary advice for a financial services customer, but this is important, right? As we get into investments, you don't want an app to start telling people where to invest their money or to buy GameStop, right? You want to prevent that. So there's components of a guardrail. The first one is a denied topic, right? This is where you're saying in very plain English, I don't want my model to do this. You give it a really quick definition. So here I'm telling it, providing or recommending any financial assets. Give it some examples. And that's the first one. So anytime the model sees that, hey, the input is close to this, block it, intervene. And it does this for both the requests that you're sending the model and the stuff that's coming out. The next one is what we call content policy filters. These are things that we've built here on the Bedrock team that what we consider responsible AI. So things, hey, related to violence, hate, criminal misconduct, things like prompt attacks, prompt injections, things like that. where we're blocking that by default at both the input and the output. So whatever the person's sending the model or whatever the model is responding with. And I'll go through these next ones pretty quickly, but this is word filters. So if you just want to block specific words or you want to block specific profanity, think of that really as a static check. And when it gets to more sensitive information like PII or for custom things like regex, you can define that as well. And as Anubhav mentioned earlier, you can do things like contextual grounding checks where, hey, is it grounded in the source or is it relevant to what we actually need? In the event that you actually trigger a guardrail or intervene on a guardrail, you're going to get a blocked message. And you can define this. So if you want this to be a very static message, it'll make it super clear that the guardrail intervened. We ran it, and what you'll get in your API response, and it's really important you have this, is the guardrail ID and the guardrail version. So if we just copy this, we can take it. Go ahead.
No, I said okay.
Perfect. So yeah, this is really important because this is going to be the input to every inference call you make. Both the notebooks you see here are available on GitHub, and I'll be available for you guys to play around with. So I'm going to hop on over now to the applied guardrail API. What Anubhav mentioned before is important is we're not actually being dependent on any foundational model. If you have something you're using today and you just want to make sure you have responsible AI ready to go.
So you can interface this feature with any foundation model that's supported, not just one specific one, correct?
That's correct, yeah. And we'll walk through that in the code right now.
Okay.
But really, what you're going to be doing is really analyzing text input for now. So regardless if that text input is from a Bedrock model, from a self-hosted model, or from a third-party provider, it's really treating it as agnostic. What you define is the input that you're actually sending the model, and then you're defining what the output is, and that's how the guardrail will assess it. And I'll make it a lot more clear as we go through the demo today. But what we're going to do is just provide our guardrail ID that we created earlier in our version. Okay. Remember, this is for fiduciary advice. So let's ask a really simple question, right? A goodbye, right? Let's ask it if this product makes sense. Is it good? What do you guys think is going to happen if we ask it if it's a good buy?
Well, the hope is that a guardrail would intercede on behalf and reject it because you're asking for specific financial advice.
Yeah, let's see what happens. So we'll see here, the action didn't. And the reason why is it's just asking, is it a good buy? Now let's ask it something a little more specific. Let's ask it.
The way this is phrased to me, at least it almost is, it isn't necessarily a question about, should I buy this stock AB503? It could be, there's also a product named AB503. And are you asking me, is it okay to buy the product? Right?
Exactly.
So now,
that's exactly it. This doesn't hit fiduciary advice. But now let's actually do something that does hit fiduciary advice. Will buying AB503 make me really rich?
I hope so.
I want $5,000 a month guaranteed, right?
Why stop with 5,000?
Yeah, I like this comment in the chat. Hey, it says, Alexa, should I invest my life savings into Dogecoin?
Right? And
no comment on that. From
no, we're not offering any fiduciary advice. Much like our guardrail, we're not gonna.
Yeah, and this is the fun part about live demos. Give me 1 second here. I'm just gonna make sure I got the right guardrail ID and the right version here. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, while you're doing that, so I just want to be clear how we got here. So we first have to create the guardrail, which defines what we're on the lookout for. And you had different components of that. So you had different questions that you don't want to answer. You can be explicit, but you also be interpretive in the way that the guardrail may interpret the limitation. So now, after you've created that, now we can take that guardrail ID that it creates and say, okay, assess this prompt with this guardrail, and then we should see. So theoretically, we could have many different types of guardrail and apply them in different scenarios.
That's exactly it, right? And the thing is that think of a guardrail as a self-contained component, right? So it'll have all these components within it. And based on that, it'll actually make a request. So let me skip on over here to actually kind of explain what's going on within each of these inputs, and they'll probably make it a lot more clear. So you'll see here in this event where we have the actual content of the request body itself. And let me explain what's going on. So the first thing here is the actual text that we're using as our grounding source. So this is, as Anubhav mentioned, the source of truth, right, that we're assessing our guardrail against. The next one is the query. So this is the actual prompt that we're asking the question on. And think of guard content as the response that the model received, right? From here, what you're sending in the payload is the actual request. So when you trigger this, you'll see, hey, in the event that the guardrail intervened, why did it intervene? Well, in our source of truth, we said that it offers a non-guaranteed rate of 7%. But what the question that was asked was, what's your guaranteed rate of return? And we'll see that our guaranteed rate, the model responded with a guaranteed rate of 7%. Well, that's just not factually accurate. So if we run through this, and you'll see that I posted it as output, and you'll see that the guardrail intervened. Why did it intervene? Because of our contextual grounding check.
By the way, I think your question is better than I really anticipated. I want to be honest here, because there is a slightly very important difference between the two statements you made, but yet I can see how a model or something would have returned one of those answers thinking it is okay. But the subtle word difference is incredibly important from the English perspective. You know, the guaranteed rate being 7% versus the rate of return, or et cetera, et cetera. These are a subtlety that this is a great example for. And
yeah,
I should have recognized it before, but anyhow, it wasn't.
And this is precisely the scenarios that we see hallucinations in foundation models or LLMs being, because these could really hurt customer trust or customer sentiment, right, if you're providing such incorrect information. And that's where I think Guardrail totally does like a pretty good job at weeding out such responses and blocking such responses out there.
Yeah.
And hey, Raj, we've got just a few more minutes to go in this segment. So let's, I want to make sure we get to everything.
Yeah, for sure. So the last thing we want to show today is just kind of how you would use this in a flow where you're using a third party or a self-hosted model, right? Typically, the interaction flow you'd want to create is something where you'd send an input and we would check the input guardrail. So, hey, is this prompt good to go? If it is, then great, send it off to the foundational model, get your response. If it's not, have the guardrail intervene and have it give it a defined message. In the event that the model response isn't good, hey, it's gonna get flagged by the output guardrail, and then from there it's gonna go back. And if everything's good, you will get a response back to your end user. So for today's demo, I'm gonna use a Meta Llama 2 model. Llama 3 model. Again, this is a self-hosted model. I'm not running this via Bedrock. This is something I'm hosting on SageMaker. What I'm doing is I'm just going to send it a request where I'm asking it on how I save for retirement. Gives me a pretty good answer, but now let's incorporate it into our guardrails flow. Again, all this code is open source, and what I'm showing here right now is just a class that I built that implements that workflow earlier. So let's check sample usage. Again, let's go back to our example of guaranteed rate of return, and give it a grounding source of a non-guaranteed rate of 7%.
I have
Rush,
bad
go
news.
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to finish.
It's almost done.
Okay.
It'll run through this one here.
Better be quick.
It's just running. I promise. So you'll see here real quick, the input guardrail is great. The query is safe. Let's move forward. Let's actually send it off to the model for inference. You'll see our model responded with a pretty interesting answer. It said it was 4.25 per annum, right? Which is, I don't know, it kind of hallucinated that answer there. You'll notice that the output, hey, we caught it at the output. The model hallucinated a weird answer, but we saw that the guardrail intervened. And this way, we're not having our customers see negative responses or things just aren't factually correct about our products.
Very cool. Raj, this is, I'm sure we could do this all day and explore this API. And again, I would like to, but unfortunately, we've got to get to some more segments. So Raj, Anubhav, thank you so much for joining. One last question. Where can people learn more about this and get this code?
Yeah. Go ahead, Anubhav.
No, you can go to the Bedrock website and Bedrock's documentation. Guardrails information is all out there. There are multiple blog posts. Just search for AWS blog guardrail, and you will have like a lot of information about guardrails.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for joining us today. Very cool stuff. We will can't wait to see what you guys do next.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks a lot for having us here.
Thanks for joining. All right, that was pretty cool. I love security, and I like the combination here with guardrail. And his example, like I said, I thought we were discussing kind of fiduciary stuff, which can get a little dry, but I love the subtlety that it created. So what a great example he was showing us.
Yeah, and so much more we could get into with how to use guardrails. Responsible AI. I mean, we could probably host a whole show just on responsible AI and what that means and different ways to do it. So really cool segment. But we got more Bedrock. But before we get to that, we want to mention our survey. We have a 2-minute survey that you can take, and the first 50 respondents will get $10 in AWS credits. And we really care about this survey. We want to know, what do you think about the show?
This is your opportunity to give us feedback. We can make some changes here. Make sure our producer is working all weekend, pumping through, having to review these surveys. Otherwise, I think he was going to be listening to Dixie Chicks all weekend too. So he has poor choices in music or stuff like that. Well, I mean, if you like, you like. But anyhow, fill that survey out. Let's get to it. And I think we have our next segment coming up here. We're going to have a little bit of a interlude, if you will, from one of our sponsors.
Yeah, let's hear from the sponsor.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Adrian San Miguel. I'm a principal enterprise architect here at AWS, working with partners of all shapes and sizes. And today I'm joined by Gordana over at NVIDIA, someone I've just started to work with. Say hey, Gordana.
Hi, Adrian.
Well, Gordana, I understand we've got a lot of interesting things to talk about today, and really kind of going to be hopping around a little bit. And I'm actually pretty excited since I do dabble quite a bit these days in generative AI, given my role in our technology center of excellence, focusing on partners. And GenAI, everybody is kind of talking about it. I've come to understand that as we go along, people are having to make some pretty interesting discussion points and decisions about accuracy and latency and figuring out where your trade-off is going to be. I've understood that you got something pretty interesting to talk about today.
Yes, absolutely. But I just first want to say that everybody knows that companies are investing heavily in generative AI these days, and they do that to boost productivity of employees and to transform customer experience. So they're focusing on domain-specific question answering chatbots, intelligent virtual assistants, and digital avatars, and they are applying large language models. And as you mentioned about the accuracy, there is a little bit hallucination, and therefore they are applying a retrieval augmenting generation. But here we are here to talk about voice interface for all these applications. And my colleagues, yes, do you have a question already?
No, I'm just kind of blown away. You got my attention. If I was a dog who could like actually point my ears up, that got my ears to perk up right away. So would love to hear what you've got to say. This is fantastic.
So excellent. So we want to talk about Riva Speech AI NIMs and about voice interface technologies that are wrapping up all this fantastic generative AI. And the technology behind it is actually automatic speech recognition and text-to-speech. And these are the areas where actually Riva shines. And I just want to mention that Riva offers state-of-the-art multilingual interface for all these conversational applications. It consists of GPU-accelerated multilingual speech and translation AI microservices. And this is very important when you are building, deploying these fully customizable real-time conversational AI pipelines. And the major selling point, or everybody what they want to do, is to customize it, right? So the customization is a big deal. And currently, the NVIDIA Parquet ASR family of models, along with the NVIDIA Canary multilingual, multitask ASR and translation model, top the Hugging Face Open ASR leaderboard. So this is very exciting. And Nitin gonna talk about parakeet models and show some hands-on demos. And then in addition to this, recently NVIDIA announced the general availability of downloadable NIMs, NVIDIA Inference Microservices. And these are actually the fastest, easiest, and most portable way of deploying generative AI models in production. So if you want speed, this is the way to go. And absolutely, you will be amazed. And if you want to try it, you can do it for free. There is on the build.nvidia.com. So just go there and see LLMs, their community models, their custom models, NVIDIA models, whatever you want.
Now, you said a couple really awesome things in there that I think maybe worth going into. I hate to say the term double clicking, so I'm actively trying not to say it. Multilingual, that's huge. One of the biggest things that I hear with working with partners all over the globe, it's especially down in Latin America, where yes, English may be the language in which they're conducting some of their business, but many customers in Brazil, for example, they want Brazilian Portuguese to be the default, but they also don't want to have two different work streams, two different data sets they have to work with, two different LLMs, two different set of processes to go through and manage their application. It sounds like we might have a way to be able to combine those, optimize, and ensure that we're doing more with less along the way. Is that about right?
Yes, absolutely. This is the way to go. Everybody wants their languages, but at the same time, there are so many applications where they want to have different languages. And Portuguese and Spanish is, definitely one of the most popular ones.
Yeah, and I speak both of them pretty equally badly. It's sadly to say. Spanish was my first language. I started picking up Portuguese to better communicate with partners down there. And yeah, this is something that as I'm learning and continuing in the global role that I'm in, understanding that local language support or even just familiarity, ability to access in that language is huge. But that's enough of my prattling on. You mentioned that Nitin will be joining us. Would love to bring him on if he's ready, if we're ready.
Yes, absolutely. Nitin's going to dive into parakeet models and short, I think, on AWS. So Nitin, awesome. All back to you.
Hey, Adrian. Thank you, Gordana, for the great introduction.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. Nitin, would you mind doing a quick introduction of yourself and letting us know what your favorite LLM is?
Sure. I'm Nitin. I'm a research scientist in the NVIDIA research team, working mainly on developing all the speech and speaker models for NVIDIA Nuvo team. I'm excited to be here and to talk about the research behind all the parakeet models and the latest stage of the models we're developing.
Yeah, absolutely thrilled to have you here. This is something that more and more in speaking with partners these days, the need for automatic speech recognition is becoming huge to avoid having people to either transcribe or sit down and do that sanity check of stuff that they're injecting into the models. That's huge. We'd love to learn more about it and understand you might have a demo that's going to get us part of the way there.
Yeah, sure. So let me pull up my screen real quick. Yep. So today I'm going to talk about mostly about the research behind the latest ASR models we have and we have been developing. These are the cutting edge models we have from NeMo. So I'm going to just deep dive into how users can run this. In order to first show this demo, I chose AWS instance for me to pick a GPU. Okay. I'm currently running on the AWS instance with NVIDIA Deep Learning based AMI Docker container. So I already have access to it and it's in the running state. So I connect to it using the SSH client. I already did in the background to save some time. So this demo is based on the space I already created on the Hugging Face. So anyone who would like to jump in can copy these files. So I'm going to later show how users can do that. But let me quickly run this application in the background. So while it runs, I'm going to show a little bit about what this model is and how users can run. So I'm currently using the 810G GPU on AWS, which has about 24 gigabytes of RAM. Since I'm going to show an ASR application which can transcribe any length of the audio. So this is the latest model we have, which is the Parakeet, TDT, CTC. It's an encoder decoder model which can take input as speech and output a transcription. It's all based on fast conformer encoder, and it could be one of three decoders like CTC, RNNT, TTT. What I'm going to show right now is an hybrid model which is developed with a TDT and CTC decoder, and users can run this application by going to this link which I just shared and made it public. They can go to it and clone this repository, which I already did. I'm running the app.py application. So let me dive into it. So I just did run this application in the background, and I'm going to copy. So since this is based on Gradio, what Gradio offers is basically offers the UI for us to give the audio, maybe through one of the inputs, which I created for this demo. So since I copied that, let me paste it here. Yep. Okay, give it 2 seconds for it to load. Yep. So this model, what are the latest model we have? It's a family of models. So we are naming it as Parakeet. There are a lot of many models right now. But what we have on the OpenAI leaderboard. We have a bunch of the models that top the OpenAI leaderboard, which measure the accuracy of these models on many data sets. So they cover many domains. So it's suited for many tasks, not just one task, which is the domain. And they're also optimized for inference speed as well. So not just they get best word error rate, they also get better inference speeds as well. So let me show how quick it is, and also show how it can transcribe very, very long audios. So this model on A100 GPU can transcribe up to 11 hours. So since we have A10 GPU, which is good about like handling 2 hours, so I'm going to grab a YouTube video, which basically is an hour long. I know a recent interview from which Jensen gave in a Stanford interview. Oh, 1 second.
Demo gods are acting up again, aren't they?
They do.
They do. But hey, that's part of the fun in it. It's something we gotta roll with, right?
So this is the video. Because I know it's an hour long, which is basically suits for our demo. So I copied the link and just paste it in here.
Okay.
So what this demo does is basically downloads the whole audio, which might take approximately 30 to 40 seconds for it to download and process and put it in a WAV format, which the model I'm talking about can process it. And then it uses two of the decoders, what I talked about. So it uses both our CTC and TTT to transcribe this speech, input speech, which is now coming through YouTube. The CTC we use for getting the timestamps because it produces accurate timestamps, and TDT for accurate transcriptions. So we combine both of them and show right now both the transcriptions as well as the timestamps with it. So you could go to any point of time in the video since you already know where each sentence is being spoken. So let's see how the transcription is going on right now. Oh, yeah. So it finished transcribing using TDT.
Wow.
And so it should, finish the transcribe using CTC. So both of the decoders, 1 hour audio transcribed within like 10 seconds. Now it's taking time to load up the UI on Gradio. So it should be here in any minute, any second, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be going pretty quick. And, something that you mentioned was you can pick the appropriate model based off of your use case.
Yeah.
That's so huge. It's nice to have that flexibility. And that's got to be at least the top two, if even that level of concern that I keep hearing from customers and partners is which model do I use for my use case, and is it possible to swap them out, or is there one better than others? But if you go to the leaderboard, as you mentioned, you find the right one for your use case.
Exactly. Yeah. So the use cases depends on whether they would out even faster inference speed because they would like to deploy for the servers, which is what NVIDIA names are offering for. So we develop all these models and put it on public so users can try and based on their use case. So over here, while we are talking, the transcription has been done, and it shows both the timestamps. So let me play this video. Probably I need to reshare for me to share this audio. Just give me a second while I reshare the tab with the audio.
Yeah, no worries. While that pulls up, is it safe to say that no matter where you choose or how to choose to integrate a NIM into the workflow, that we'll be able to accommodate that by effectively going through exactly the steps that you're going through.
Yeah. So these steps are basically where I would like to highlight on the research that we have been doing. Through NVIDIA NIMs, there are a different set of steps because they would like to do and from the inference API servers and all these things. So Sven going to talk more about it later. So once I'm finished, so I'll just end the demo since I would like to show a couple of things here. So right around the 4 seconds here.
Jensen, this is such an honor. Thank you for being here.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
In honor of your return to Stanford, I decided we'd start talking about the time when you first left. You joined LSI Logic, and that was one of the most exciting companies at the time. You're building a phenomenal reputation with some of the biggest names in tech, and yet you decide to leave to become a founder. What motivated you?
Chris and Curtis.
So there you can see that Jensen talks exactly the transcription with the time. So it says where exactly the word has been spoken and where it ends. Since it has the timestamps, I'm just going to do some interesting thing here. So let's go to some point of time because if I would not like to see the entire video and I would like to go some questions what users going to ask because I saw this video already. So one of the user asked around 50th minute on what are the capabilities of this the generative effects of all the models being developed. So let's go to that. So here, there it is. So a user asked my name's Charles and everything. So let's go to this point and see and run the video to see if it's aligned and exactly what's in the video.
My name's Jose. I'm a class of the 2023 from the GSB. My question is, are you worried
exactly
at all
to
about the
where's
pace
the
at
start
which
time
we're
and end
developing
time?
AI?
And this is what the capability of all these latest models what we are offering. So they offer great inference speeds, and you can infer very, very long audios. Here I transcribed a hour-long video in just 10 seconds. But we do offer many models, as you pointed out before. So users can pick anything according to their needs.
That is awesome. And selfishly, I could think of a couple things that I can use this for. Mostly to solve some arguments over movie quotes, exactly what, who said what. Yes. So in advance, thank you for helping me win some bets. But as you mentioned, I'd love to dive into NIMs. So let's go ahead and bring Sven on. And so we have a bit of a clip to show. Is that right?
Yep. Thanks for having me. And I'll let Sven talk about more about the things on NVIDIA NIMs.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Adrian. Thanks for having me.
You may be aware that NVIDIA has recently granted general access to over 40 of its inference modules, aka NIMs. NIMs package AI models, applications, and services into optimized containers that a user can run in the cloud, in a data center, or on a workstation. You can explore them at build.nvidia.com. In this demonstration, we'll focus on NVIDIA's Riva Parakeet NIM. To run the Parakeet NIM on AWS, NVIDIA recommends starting with the NVIDIA GPU-optimized AMI. You can easily find it in the AWS Marketplace and launch an EC2 instance from it. After applying for and obtaining permission to self-host the Parakeet NIM, you'll be granted access to this instructional document, or one very much like it. Let's head over to a terminal and set everything up. First, let's pull the appropriate Docker container. You can see from a call to NVIDIA SMI that this node contains an L40 GPU. Thus, we set the GPU type to L40X1 with lowercase letters. Next, we prepare a directory in which to download the Parakeet model files. Since those files depend on the GPU type, I've incorporated it into the directory's name. We then download the model files to the repository directory. There is an important difference between this and running the Riva Quick Start scripts. We've just downloaded models that are already optimized for the L40 GPU. The Riva Quick Start scripts download intermediate representations of the models in the form of ARMIR files, which are then optimized for the host GPU. After downloading the model files, run the SpeechNim container in detached mode. Next, run a gRPC health check on the SpeechNim container. If the console returns serving as the container status, the service is ready for inference. If it returns anything else, you probably ran the health check too soon. For the final step in the SpeechNim container's quick start guide, use the container's transcribe file script to transcribe a recording of a man asking, "What is natural language processing?" which is also provided in the container. To further demonstrate the capabilities of the Parakeet NIM, I've launched a simple Gradio web app, which a coworker developed and I modified ever so slightly. This app allows users to transcribe themselves with ASR models on the specified Riva server. In this case, the node where I'm running the Parakeet NIM. Let's see how it does with my voice. I'm demonstrating the capabilities of the NVIDIA Riva Parakeet NIM for Amazon's AWS OnAir event. Well, the punctuation could use some improvement, but overall, I'd say that transcription's pretty darn good.
Then that is pretty fantastic. Good to have you on the show. Please introduce yourself, and would love to talk just slightly a bit about what we just saw.
Hi, Adrian. Yep, thank you for having me. I am a deep learning developer advocate at NVIDIA. I like to describe my role as a mixture of developing, playing with, educating about, and evangelizing for NVIDIA's deep learning software, most particularly speech AI.
Very, very cool. So in a nutshell, is it safe to assume that just about any particular use case, any machination that a user would have to be able to put forth and leverage Riva to, either do that dictation or the audio playback to capture the things, to be able to inject into a document, insert into an LLM, then begin learning against it or leveraging it? Is that a pretty safe assumption?
Yeah, Riva can do pretty much all of that. Now, at the moment, only the Parakeet model is available as a NIM, but support for other modalities, languages, and model architectures is coming. If you want to do the rest of that with Riva, you'll have to go through NVC and use the classic Riva for now.
Awesome. So it sounds like we got a little bit of homework for our audience. If there's any parting bits of nuggets that you would like to leave for the group on how they can get started and continue tinkering, would love to hear about it.
I have made some demo videos on getting started with Riva. Hopefully they should be up on YouTube.
Okay, yeah, we'll drop the links into the chat here momentarily, and would love to see what folks are going to get going to build. Sven, the rest of the group, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know I've got my homework to do. Like I mentioned to Nitin, I got some bets to go in, and appreciate spending the time with us, and encourage you, the audience, go learn, go tinker, go figure something out, and have fun doing it. Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate you all tuning in.
Yeah, thanks. Likewise, Adrian.
Thank you.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Art, thanks for our sponsor segment brought to you by NVIDIA. I think we should probably just get right into our next and just keep this thing rolling. Oh, we don't hear Art. There's Art, we don't hear you.
Oh, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Hey, welcome back to the show, Art. A technical glitch, it happens.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, these segments, I've seen a few of them over the time from NVIDIA. It's always kind of interesting to see how they deploy and how all the applications that you can use to on AI in that sponsorship. I also will call folks' attention to another video that we have also launched, and people can Google this, on something called Project SIBA, where we're building the world's largest supercomputer together, only on AWS. So yeah. Let's bring on our next guests, though, here. I think it's time to do that.
I'm ready. Sandeep, welcome to the show. You are live on AWS OnAir. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let the audience know who you are.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Art, for having me today here. My name is Sandeep Singh, and I am Senior Generative AI Data Scientist at AWS in WWSO team. And in my current role, I support Bedrock go-to-market and helping many of my customers for developing their GenAI applications and enabling them in generative AI application journey. Yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Very cool. Now, that's a pretty cool title, Senior Data Scientist for Generative AI. That sounds like a lot of fun. And today we've been talking about Bedrock. We got into guardrails a little bit earlier. We're talking about Bedrock. What part of Bedrock are we going to be getting into in this part of the segment?
Yeah, so we will be learning more about today in knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock, where we have released new feature and that will enable you to build most optimal RAG solution. So knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock is basically a service capability, RAG capability, which allows you to connect your foundation model securely with your company data, your proprietary data. And then it also allows you to manage your end-to-end RAG solution, building the data ingestion workflow, as well as data retrieval workflow. So there's a lot more we are going to talk about. We have released new connectors. We also have released new advanced chunking strategies, as well as a parsing mechanism you can use to optimize your RAG workflow.
Maybe we should, before we keep going a little further, also, I always like to define for people what is a RAG in the first place. I know in our last segment, also on Bedrock, we had to describe what hallucinations are, but let's just briefly reiterate for everybody what a RAG is and how it's used, Sandeep.
Yeah, exactly. So RAG is retrieval augmented generation, which is a technology in this GenAI space. We are using large language model to generate new content, but I think earlier we talked about hallucination. So they may hallucinate, and when you want to ground your large language model with your company data, that is where RAG, retrieval augmented generation, comes into picture. So what RAG allows you to ground foundation model with your proprietary data, and you can ask the questions and use LLM's power to get right responses or accurate responses from your company data source, rather than the open knowledge it has received while the training of large language models.
Right. Let me say that back to you to make sure I understand. So we have these large language models, and they're large because they've been trained on massive corpuses of text to learn how to speak and interact as humans do. And so there's all that way, and we can interact with that just as is, based on its original training. But if we want to give it some specific context, something to say, hey, this is my data, this is my text, take what you know, augment it with what I'm giving you, and then generate your response. So we have this, as we're retrieving the data back from the LLM, we can augment it with our own data. And that's where the knowledge base comes in, because that data actually then gets indexed into the knowledge base.
Exactly.
And then there's different strategies and things that we're developing to make that process better and faster and easier. Is that summarize it pretty well?
Yeah, it is exactly. So you have summarized it pretty well. Yep.
Cool. Art, did you have a question?
No, I didn't have a question. I mean, I have a question, but I understood what we were saying here. So one of the things we talked about is the integration, and we've talked about supporting data ingestion from S3. So everybody knows S3 is one of our most popular features out there, storage place for databases. But we're also announcing that we can sync data from other sources outside of just S3 as well. And what made you decide to do this? And maybe we should talk a little bit about some of the other sources, or name a handful of the other sources. I know, for example, you can bring in data from SFDC or Salesforce as well into this. I know a lot of folks who are out there who are sales folks or whose companies use SFDC will welcome that kind of addition. But maybe you could talk a little bit more about the other places where we're going to take data from, or part of you're going to take data from.
Exactly. Yeah. No. As I mentioned, while working with various customers, they're very excited about knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock. So before we launch these new connectors, and we will speak more about those connectors, we could only use S3 as a data source to connect to this knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock. But we are hearing, working backward from our customers, we are hearing they want to connect different data sources to knowledge bases. Maybe there may be many reasons why they want different data sources, why they don't want to put their data into S3. So due to their business needs, they want different data sources. And that's why we heard them, we work backward from them, and we have expanded our data sources from S3 to now you can connect Confluence page, you can connect, you can use web crawler to crawl the data from websites, Salesforce, and SharePoint as well. So these are few data connectors we have added to our data source base. You can connect to the knowledge bases.
Okay, and you're going to show us that in action. That's part of your demo. So I think we should get right into that demo because we ran a little short on time in the last segment. I don't want that to happen to you, Sandeep. So show us what you got here. Let's get into that demo.
Are you saying that we talk too much, Todd?
I love to talk, and which is probably why I'm hosting this show, but it's also a curse. So,
so what I'm going to show today is how you can build the knowledge bases for Amazon Bedrock using multiple data sources. And to do that, I'm going into my knowledge Bedrock console.
Wait, so we're logged into AWS and the AWS console. We're at the Bedrock service, and so now we're getting into Bedrock, the knowledge base portion of Bedrock's got it.
Yep. So I have created these two two knowledge bases for the demo purpose, but I have a different screen, so I will be looking here and there, and I promise I won't be, messaging to anyone on the Slack or sending any email. But yes. So what we have when you can click on, I'll show how you can go and create the knowledge bases. Click on the and how easy it is to create the knowledge bases from different data sources. So when you click on create knowledge bases, you come on this page. We have pretty much default name for the knowledge bases, IAM role and permissions, and you see these are the list of data sources what you can connect. Although I want to reiterate that these features are in preview as of now, and they will become GA soon. So now, if you see, I can choose S3 bucket, go to the next, or I can choose my Confluence page and go to the next and define some configuration. I can choose the embedding model, which I want to use, review and create. But since I have created the knowledge bases for you, let's see how it will be looking like once it is created. So these are two knowledge bases I have created. So if I go in this knowledge base, you can see I have only one data source connected with this knowledge base. And that is how you used to do it earlier, before these new launches of new connectors, right? But there's another knowledge bases which I have created for you from S3 bucket and Confluence. So you can go here and see I have two data sources connected with this knowledge bases. One is Confluence and another is S3 bucket. And I would like to have.
Is there a maximum how many you can connect here? So I see you have a Confluence in S3, but we also saw other sources. If customers have multiple sources?
So you can connect up to 5 data sources as now in the knowledge bases. Yes.
Great.
Perfect. So let's see how we can interact. And also I'll show you when you will be querying with the knowledge bases, how it will look like. But before that, I just want to show if this is a Confluence page, and in this Confluence page, I have a test page. You have seen I have some text. Along with, I do have an attachment on this page. So if you see, there is a one file attached to this Confluence page, and let's see how we will be getting the answer from this. Correct. And with that, I'm going to. I have my query. So let's go to my knowledge bases. Oh, I'm in the knowledge bases. Yeah, this is S3 Confluence. I will select the model for response generation. Here I am using retrieve and generate API. So knowledge bases provide you retrieve API as well as retrieve and generate API to interact with. And I'm choosing Claude 3 Sonnet for generating the response. And I'm asking how to improve the accuracy. And let's run this. And I'm hoping that the answer it should come from this test page. So now it is working on this, and you see it has come. It has come with an answer. In addition to that, you can also see the source attribution. And if you want to see here from where this information is coming, you can see this is coming from a page whose ID is this, and there are other attributes, metadata associated with that. So that is how this knowledge bases you have created and asking the question. But what if you want to ask some questions from the data which is stored in your S3 bucket? So let's see that as well.
But before we do that, can we just go back and click on the test page here so that we can, I think we could probably all remember the first thing. So to improve the accuracy, with the optimized retriever. So this is the information that now has been populated here in our original in our current answer, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And let me make it a little bit more this. All right. So let's ask. Oops.
Zooming in.
All right. So now we're going to go back and we're going to add in information from S3. So right now we took our data from Confluence, and that was our new source of data. Now we're going to check S3 as well. Okay.
Yes. Now we will see. I'm again going and selecting a model. This time, it's again selecting. So on it, I'm asking how many employees were hired during March 2020 across Amazon across all fulfillment and delivery network. So basically, I have uploaded Amazon shareholder letter into this S3 bucket, and I'm asking the question from this multi-data source knowledge bases, and it will retrieve the data from the S3 bucket. This time it's not going to get, because this information is not available on the Confluence page, but in the attachment which was attached there. So here, sorry, in the S3 bucket, and that is how you are seeing here. It came up with an information that 100,000 employees or new positions were opened across fulfillment center and delivery network. So you see how easy it is to using multiple creating your knowledge bases using multiple data sources. One more thing I want to mention, with these new features, like we have also released new feature, advanced chunking and parsing strategies, which you can leverage to improve the accuracy of your retrieval augmented generation application. So basically, the accuracy of your generated response is as good as the quality of your retrieval. So we have discussed there is a retrieval component, there's augmentation, and then generation. So using these advanced features like chunking strategy, we have released semantic chunking, which also have released hierarchical chunking, along with we already had fixed size chunking. So you can choose your chunking strategy while creating this knowledge bases, which will definitely enhance your performance of your retrieval, and you will be able to generate right and accurate responses.
So Sandeep, I want to go into that a little bit. So we're creating this knowledge base. This is an index of data that we want to be able to query against. And we need to connect that to different data sources. One of those data sources could be S3, and we're going to pull data into our index from S3, or what we launched are these new straight data connectors. Confluence, a really popular product for Jira. I was a developer for a long time, so a lot of the development wikis we developed went into Confluence to support our development efforts. But then we have Salesforce. And so S3 and all these other connectors, we're going to pull that data into our index. And then what I really love about Bedrock is you can quickly test that, right? We can select a different model and test the generation of text based on this knowledge base. And when you're talking about chunking and different strategies, we're talking about the ways in which that data is pulled into that index. There's different ways we can do that to maybe improve our accuracy and performance of the model.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to show you this when you're creating the knowledge bases, and you are just saying, let's say if you are choosing one of the document.
I want to point out, sorry, Sandeep, I just want to point out, someone asked if you could do this based off of a PDF in the comments section. And I think you just kind of can you automatically parse PDFs? So I feel like we answered the question. I just wanted to highlight that Sir Havensworth asked that as a question here as well. And it's nice to see you call out to Sir Havensworth. This is the second time this week we've interacted. He was on the AWS OnAir discussion for AI earlier this week too.
Yeah.
All right, go on.
Perfect. So now when I'm creating this knowledge bases and you're configuring this data sources, you see here we have default chunking and parsing configuration. Basically, this is by default, you will be using fixed chunking. But if you want to customize your RAG application, you see we have multiple options. So you can choose different chunking strategies, hierarchical chunking, semantic chunking, and no chunking. If you have your own chunking mechanism or own chunking logic, so you can bring that logic to make your own chunks in a custom Lambda function and just define the configuration for that Lambda function, and you are able to import your own custom logic into Amazon Bedrock to make the chunks of your document before indexing into the vector store. So that is how you can we are with these new advanced chunking strategy, you can choose different chunking strategy. One more interesting feature, which is very favorite for me personally, is parsing strategy. So most of the time, what we have seen working with various customers, the documents, like for example, PDF is a very complex document. They contains text, they contains images as well as the tables with the complex structure. So if you just directly ingest that into knowledge bases or in any RAG application, you may not be able to retrieve optimum answers. So what we do here is we are providing you advanced chunking strategy where you can choose one of the foundation model to parse that information from that complex document before making the chunks and putting into the vector stores. What it will allow you to understand the structure of those constituents of that PDF page or that file and extract that information or parse that information beforehand, putting into preparing these knowledge bases. So this is pretty cool that you behind the scene, you are leveraging foundation model to parse the complex document to understand the text behind it or the complexity of the text and store into vector store in a vector database before creating your knowledge bases. So
yeah, this is really cool. So we're talking about with a combination of parsing strategy, actually using a model to parse and understand what is in this PDF. We can also chunk that in various strategies to have it stored properly to enhance our retrieval. So if you're like me, I'm going to go default first. I'm going to say, what can I do with default? But maybe I'm just not quite getting the responses that I want. There's something that seems to be off, and I recognize, hey, I've got a lot of PDFs. They're very complicated. Maybe I should start exploring these other strategies to optimize how my chatbot is performing. That's really cool.
Exactly. So, and we will share. We have our sources. Code samples available on GitHub. You can explore, go into the GitHub knowledge bases folder, and you will find those examples of experimenting with various chunking and see how which chunking is performing well for your data sources, right? So you can definitely start with default and experiment with other chunking strategy also.
Sandeep, is there any
call out to the? Sorry, I was just going to say, I just want to give a call out as well to the GitHub repository for folks out there, not just for this, but for our other topic as well with Guardrail. This is a great way to both interact with folks from AWS and to get more information. So it's not just a great information source, but a lot of our developers and engineers are spending a great deal of time out there, and we can respond pretty quickly as well. And Todd, I cut you off, so sorry about that.
No, I was just going to say, is there any guidance or do you publish anywhere where you talk about which strategies might be more effective for different types of data, or is this more of a trial and error kind of thing?
It is what I've seen is it's more on experimentation basis because each customers may have different kind of data and a different structure of their data within their files, right, or within their documents. So I start with experimenting with various strategies, but like I mentioned, we have end-to-end code sample where you can experiment. You can start with, hey, I have chosen default chunking, hierarchical chunking, semantic chunking, and which one is giving me the right, right results. So we are using open source Raga's framework to evaluate those chunking results, and you can take a better decision here based on those accuracy results or other metrics results, which chunking will be more aligned for your use case or more aligned for your data.
Yeah, that's awesome, Sandy. So I imagine we'll have that link available in the chat and after this video. And so we've gotten through new connectors for knowledge bases and making it easy to get in there. And then we also have ways to parse and chunk and really control how that data gets vectorized and stored in the index. Sandeep, thanks for coming on to the show. This is a really cool demo. I hope we got to everything you wanted to get to in this. And I can't wait to see what else you guys do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Have a good week.
Thanks for joining us. All right. So There are a lot of great features on Bedrock, and it's kind of a pretty expansive space. So I think today we get a great indicator of that. And I feel like these two topics were pretty well connected here. We talk about a little bit of the security guardrails, and then we talk about the improvement here on RAGs. I want to just drop one thing here is we rely on your feedback here to make this show operate. And so please fill out the survey. The first 50 folks get a few dollars for credits here, $10 for credits. But aside from the credits, let's make sure that we give our producer something to do this weekend, and he's got to get through as many surveys as humanly possible. So take a look at those for feedback. Sorry,
I'm still going for the record on responses. I need to have like a whiteboard behind me that tracks like what the most response we ever have, and then each week I'm going to check in, make sure that we're just raising like the record, going for a personal record. I think we said something like 100, maybe the most. I think we can beat that this time around.
I bet it's thousands. I think that the record is 67. All right, folks, let's try to beat that.
Very beatable.
Yeah, no. And in the spirit of the Olympics, right, with a gold medal to be handed out here if we beat the record. So try to make us, Todd and I, winners for the week here.
Well, so speaking of ruining producers' weekends, I think that's our last segment on this show. Should we bring in our producer, Nick, and just make his weekend even worse? Better.
We should, and we should talk about what's coming next. So, Nick, come on and join us here for a quick segment.
Yeah, definitely.
Nick, are you out
low light of my week?
He's shy today. Maybe he doesn't even want to join us.
Hey, Nick, speaking of Olympics, is that you running the Olympics in the background, or is what's going on?
I wish, man. I wish.
You were close.
No. I was good for a college athlete. What?
That is you, though, right?
Yeah. And everybody gives me. I did not set up this office with the thought of doing videos from here. So yeah, I get a lot of grief for that.
But did you win that race? It looks like you're winning.
I did. That's why I thought it was a cool photo back when I printed it. Nice. Yeah, guys. Speaking of next week, Todd, can you handle this?
Probably not. But we're gonna.
Art, can you handle this?
Pass out.
Debbie backstage, can you handle it? I don't think y'all can handle this.
I don't know. What's next week, Nick?
We aren't going to be on next Friday, actually.
What?
Sir Havensworth is here. Thank you, Sir Havensworth. We aren't going to be on next Friday. We're going to change it up a little bit. We've had some requests from our friends in Europe saying, hey, maybe Friday super late at night, because noon Pacific time is very late in Europe.
Yeah. Not
the best time to watch, So we're going to change it up a bit. And instead of airing the episode on August 9th, next Friday, our next show is going to be on Monday, August 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So trying to make it a little bit, not on the weekend for our friends in the UK and Germany and everywhere else in Europe. I don't know why those are the first two I thought of. And trying to make it a little bit earlier for you guys to be able to watch as well. So tune in Monday, August 12th. I know you all will be devastated next Friday not having your typical show to watch. But, we're just trying to change it up a little bit. One-time thing.
I'm trying to do the time zone map. I don't feel too terrible because I have to wake up at 3 a.m. to catch any of the Olympics. Otherwise, I'm on repeat. So watching anything live, I'm getting up way early, especially the golf right now. I don't know if you're paying any attention, but
no,
not paying attention to the Olympic golf. I'm not going to
lie. I'm just saying, like, golf is something, Todd. I'm going to throw some shade on it because I'm just like, you can watch golf. Wait, give me a break. You can watch golf any other time of the year, but like, once every 4 years, I see judo or fencing or something like that. So I have an interest in like tuning into things that like I have no idea what I'm watching.
That's fair. I did catch some of the shooting and some of the handball. Handball is intense. I actually would watch
crazy.
That. Yeah. Broadcast that more. That's a great event.
Did y'all see the gymnastics final last night too?
Missed that one.
I think they showed Simone Biles got like 12 feet in the air on one of her jumps, and I don't understand that. I don't know how that's a thing.
I don't understand how I can barely walk across a balance beam. I don't understand like the command to, let's do some jumps off of this small thing and try to land back on it. It's just impressive every time they do that sort of thing. It's,
Let's all be real. Everybody in the audience too. You 100% at some point in the next week or two are going to be walking on the sidewalk and trying to keep your feet on a very small line as you're going, just to see if you can. I can't be the only one doing that.
Nick, so we're doing the show earlier on Monday instead of Friday. Do you know what we're going to be talking about on Monday, or is that still being decided?
We're still deciding the exact segments. Don't want to completely ruin it here, but I think we're going to hear from potentially some of our partners, potentially some launches that happened recently or are coming up here in the next few days. So should be some
like
exciting
an opportunity
stuff
to influence it via the survey. Am I wrong?
I mean, no. I like to open myself a nice whiskey, sit by the fire Friday nights, and read some survey responses, So 67 is pretty weak, guys. I think we got
I think that
100 people watching right
count.
now. Like, I'm really counting on more than 67 here.
I'm hoping the survey count flies up. I admire your dedication to the fire year round. Given that it's August,
99 degrees here in Nashville.
So 99 degrees. It doesn't occur to me like to turn on the fireplace right now unless you keep your house super cool.
Oh no, it's a fire pit. We're going outside.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. I like getting bitten by mosquitoes as I'm reading the surveys. That's
right
my
here.
general rule.
Right here, it's a spotted lanternfly that's taking over our house right now. I'm noticing everywhere. But hey, Elron the Blade says handball is amazing and used to play in school. Really intensive and pretty fun. I want to see if I can get like a pickup handball game going. I don't know if anybody. Everybody around here.
Another one is field hockey. I didn't realize how intense that was. What?
How long before pickleball's an Olympic sport?
Within the decade. Like, what are the LA games are 2028? I mean, guarantee by 2028.
Do you think breakdancing survives to 2028 though?
What?
I mean, you didn't know breakdancing is a sport this year too.
It is.
Yes.
I
didn't
know that.
What is this? If I promise Nick will get bit by mosquitoes, wow. I will. I'm a little sad that that's your selling point, but whatever works, I guess. I'll show off all the mosquito bite lotion or whatever to next weekend or something. But yeah, fill out the survey.
There's no mosquitoes here. I said I'm going to stay inside.
Oh, well, I guess Art was done for the day. So, Todd, should we wrap up?
I think we should wrap it up. Hey, thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back on Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks, Nick.
All right. I'll see you guys on Monday the 12th. Thanks, guys.
You go USA.
Go USA.